Hello and welcome to Tools in the Shed, a podcast powered by CarsGuide, ready to rip into car stuff that has caught our eye this week. I'm CarsGuide Deputy Editor James, and with me, Editor Mal.
James, Thank you. Great to be here.
Adventure, editor with adventure added to it, Crafty.
Yes. Good morning. Hello.
This week, we're looking at the cars our Kiwi cousins get and we don't. So kia ora to all our friends in Aotearoa. And we'll also discuss a trio of recent entries to the CarsGuide Garage and dive into your thoughts on last week's episode. YouTubers, you can jump ahead courtesy of time codes in the notes below, and you can click on the chapter markers in the timeline. So let's go. New Zealand, so close, and yet in some ways so far away. They have cool cars, SUVs, electric vehicles that we miss out on. And our own Byron Matthew Darkus has written a piece on the specific models that do or are shortly due to arrive in New Zealand, but we're not getting. We're not starved for choice. Australia, as we constantly say, is a really competitive market, lots of brands and lots of models. But there are, in fact, a host of more recent vehicles that manufacturers simply don't bother importing into our country, yet go to the trouble of supplying New Zealand customers, which is a smaller market than ours, similarly right-hand drive. So Byron poses the question, are Kiwis more sophisticated than Aussies? Do they have better taste and appreciation for the finer things in life? And I'd answer probably yes, is the answer to that. I'm a massive Kiwi fan, admirer. But to get it going, the first one he mentions is the Dacia Duster. Now, I'm saying Dacia. It might be Dacia. I'm not sure of the pronunciation. Someone will let me know, I'm sure. But it's been around in Europe for a long time. Byron says, look, it might sound like a handheld vacuum cleaner, but it's actually a pretty handy medium-sized SUV. Japanese-based engineering, Renault-inspired dynamics. It's Nissan X-Trail sized, yet it's the price of a Yaris. Mel, have you had any experience of the Dacia Duster, and what are your thoughts on its potential in the Australian market?
Well, you see them all over the road in Europe. Like across the board. Yeah. And, they look great with the cheapest steel wheels too. They're kind of that no frills appeal, but with a great looking design.
Cool.
But I must say I'm totally on board with it not coming to Australia, given the lack of safety cred.
Yeah, 3 stars.
Yes. Like as cool as it is, like safety should be non-negotiable.
Yeah, especially nowadays. Absolutely.
Yeah, and the rest of the Australian market seems to be pushing, generally pushing for standard safety across the board and ensuring optimal occupant protection. Sorry, too late for a 10-year-old Renault-Nissan collaborative effort.
Yet we accept the Mustang.
As cool as it is.
We accept the Mustang. It's a 3-star car.
And it launched here in, 2013?
Mm-hmm.
It's been around for 8 years. I'm talking about right now.
Oh, okay. All right. So you wouldn't accept, but I mean, you can go out and buy a brand new Mustang, can't you? And it's a 3-star car.
Yeah, but I believe not as many people are as they were 8 years ago.
Crafty, what do you reckon? Is the safety thing enough to knock it out for you?
Absolutely. And again, I can't speak to its efficacy off road because I've never driven one, but I did reside in South Africa for many years, and there are plenty of them over there. And also, I've done a fair chunk of time in New Zealand, and there are plenty of them over there as well. I think they sort of exist in that sort of middle ground, being good value for money. At least that's the perception. They're not hardcore, off-roaders by anyone's estimation.
Yeah, they're not rugged.
No,
I think.
Right.
Capable,
but I think they'd
rugged.
serve their purpose and sort of fit a comfortable niche in somewhere like South Africa and New Zealand as sort of an all-purpose vehicle.
So to that point, Crafty, move your noggin to one side and fill us in on the vehicle that's in your background today.
Well, this one I've gone off grid with regards to Byron's great yarn. This behind me, while it looks a lot like a Land Rover,
yep,
just out of the way. It is, in fact, a New Zealand-built Trekker. I'll probably mispronounce that because they would, say Trekker or something.
Trekker, yes.
But it is an off-roader. It looks a lot like a Landy, built on a Skoda platform. Steel wheels, all that sort of stuff that would make it good for pig shooting in the land of the long white cloud. And by all accounts, very popular until sort of restrictions on imports in the 70s grew a bit more relaxed. And I think about 2,000 were built, maybe more. Maybe someone in New Zealand will put us right there.
Yeah.
And again, you still see a few of them around. I think they probably retain that sort of romantic notion with people of.
And we were theorising as to whether any of those 2,000 made it to Australia, whether there might be one around. So if anyone if anyone spotted one or owned one, let us know. Mal,
Crafty, was it unique to New Zealand?
Yeah. Well, obviously the Skoda platform on which it was built wasn't. But they threw it all together there, like it was locally manufactured and I think, designed and whatever.
Fantastic.
Wow. Very much New Zealand's Gogomobile then, by the sound of things. Using,
that's right.
imported mechanicals for the local body. Wonder if Bill Buckle had anything to do with it.
Oh, good old Bill.
There's a wormhole for
the
us.
old Bill. So let's
still around, Bill Buckle.
Let's circle that back to Byron's story. Thank you, Crafty. And
no problem.
We're speaking of Skodas. Another couple that he calls out is the Skoda Enyaq EV, and there's a superb plug-in hybrid that are both in New Zealand already on sale. I think the Superb is already on sale. And Skoda New Zealand's been working behind the scenes with the Czech brand to get this Enyaq electric vehicle there pretty shortly. It's based on the VW ID4 architecture, 500-kilometre range. We're not going to see it. Do you have much awareness of this one, Mel?
Yeah, and, you could say, oh, geez, is Skoda/VW using New Zealand as a test market, just due to its smaller sample size, etc., low risk. But I also wonder, and I meant to check this actually, what the EV take-up rate's like in New Zealand.
Yeah, right.
It is a smaller nation, shorter distances to travel. You can go from one side to the other, the South Island at least, pretty easily.
Yeah.
Because, further down this list, we've got the Ford Transit, PHEV, we've got the Tucson hybrid, etc.
Yeah. Because the thing that gets me is
researched it.
If ever there's an impediment that says, right-hand drive, we can't do right-hand drive, there's Australia, which is, 1 million cars, new vehicles a year. New Zealand is not 1 million vehicles a year. And yet there they get these cars that we don't. It just seems sort of hard to work out.
Yeah, I think that
they
idea,
are all.
Sorry, you go.
I was just going to say the Enyaq, etc., is the first of its kind. So that adds credence to my test market theory.
Yeah,
like they'll just sort of see who buys it, etc., to see how they can apply it throughout the rest of EV buying world.
Enyaq sounded like a very early computer to me. Wasn't there an IBM Enyaq? I can't remember. But anyway, so there's one. Mal, you mentioned it, the Honda Jazz. So it's a nameplate that people in Australia would be pretty well familiar with. It's been around for a long time, but it's not here at the moment. Yep. And yet there's a new from the ground up, 4th generation model over there. There'll be a 2-motor hybrid powertrain option offering attainable EV ownership. And Honda is seemingly in Australia firmly of the view that people won't want it here.
I think we're about to see a lot of cars like this disappear. And, look at the Yaris marching up the price scale.
Yep.
These used to be $14,990 for forever. These cars, and not anymore.
No.
And I think it's just simply a reflection of Australia just loving SUVs too much, even little SUVs.
Yes.
And we don't want it to cost any more than $14,990. And that void is being filled by the likes of the Kia Picanto.
Yeah. What a great car too.
Unfortunately, it's. I think I'm on board with Honda's decision, but obviously New Zealand's different.
Yes. Crafty, a vehicle that you've been spending a bit of time in lately, Ford Transit. And that there's also a people mover version that we don't see called the Tornado. Both with
is it a Torno?
It could be a Torno.
Torno, like Tano?
Yes, let's call it
Torno
that, Mel.
cover. Yeah.
Torno. A Torno. If you put a cover over your Torno, it's a Torno cover. And they're both plug-in hybrid electric. So you've got your electric engine and electric motor, 56 kilometres of pure EV, and then you've got a 1 litre 3-cylinder turbo petrol to extend the range past 500 kilometres.
Sounds tornographic.
Thank you, Mel. Thank you.
Good
No
Lord.
worries.
I hope, Mr. Pritchard, I hope we can edit that out. The other thing is, when you think about a story on our site just recently, authored by Richard Berry, that said, is the Grandvia a fail or a success? Is it too early to call it as, it's been unsuccessful? Carnival is such a dominant vehicle. Should Ford Australia be thinking about the Torno cover to come in here and give it a bit of competition?
I guess Mel could speak to the sort of logistics and all that sort of and pricing and whatever. But I think the fact that we are so inherently reluctant, it seems, to adopt EV stuff in general is really quite puzzling. Like, I don't understand why we aren't just bringing in a stack of them and seeing what sticks.
Yep.
Just fully embracing the whole shebang. I know we don't have the infrastructure and that sort of thing, but at least around urban centres and, I just don't understand why.
There's still an element of fear, isn't there? People are reluctant because they're kind of scared of it.
Yeah.
I think Ford's already kind of doing the experiment thing by giving us both levels of the Transit. We've got the Transit and the Transit Custom.
Yeah.
I don't think there's many other markets around the world that get both.
Right.
One being the heavy duty van, and the other being the light commercial van.
Yeah.
But
yes,
with the Torno specifically, I wonder what it could do that the Carnival can't. And, with Hyundai about to launch the Staria, that seems to reinvent that commercial-based passenger vehicle market. It'd be up against it. And, the Transit Custom is crafty. What we work out, it's something like 7 years old now.
Yeah,
right. Around a while.
It's quite an aged platform, but still an impressive thing. I mean, as a work van and as a
works really well as a commercial vehicle. Yeah. But big jump to go to.
All right. Well, I mean, an entirely different kind of vehicle. Peugeot 208 and E208. Talking about electrified models. It's one of Europe's most lauded super minis. Byron calls it out. It's a complete rethink. It's not just a kind of tart up of the car that we've been familiar with. An electrification ready platform, lightweight engineering. But the Aussie importers think there's no longer any interest in advanced city cars. They're just not into it. And Peugeot is a brand that, as we know, is selling pretty modest numbers at the moment. Would it be worth a roll of the dice to give that car a go?
I think modest is a very polite way of putting it, James.
Yep. Let's just say they're in a rebuilding phase. So
yes,
could the 208 be, a viable option now?
Well, if Honda can't sell a Jazz, how could Peugeot hope to sell a 208?
Right. Yeah. Good call. Yeah.
I think
that says that.
And the Peugeot lineup is arguably stronger than ever. The 508 is an excellent car and looks fantastic. Oh, the SUVs as well, great interiors, etc. But you just something's not clicking.
Right. You haven't got the Mal seat of the pants vibe for the 208.
I've got the vibe. It's just Australia doesn't seem to share my seat of the pants vibe.
All right. Now, what I was going to say was next. Look, a car that's only arrived in Australia recently, the Tucson, the new Tucson. Yet, New Zealand, it's the 4th gen car. Both the 1.6 litre 4-pot turbo petrol electric hybrid and plug-in hybrid EV models with all-wheel drive will be available from launch next month in New Zealand. And we've been bemoaning the fact that most Australian customers will only have the option of a pretty dreary 2-litre Atmo 4. The majority of Australian buyers will be looking down the barrel of that one. Why on earth wouldn't they come to Australia?
Don't know. I think clearly the Tucson's probably positioned differently in New Zealand. Is it so? As Australia knows the Tucson as, it has traditionally been best as a 24,990 drive away. bottom of the range. But now the current one's been forced to sort of go upscale. Perhaps it is being positioned honestly as an upscale product in New Zealand.
Yeah, I think that's the answer, by the way, that Byron got when he was researching the story and he contacted Hyundai Australia. So why aren't they coming in? Don't know. Yeah,
that's an unnamed source. Clearly,
an unnamed source. But I got to say, yes, they're going to be a little more expensive, but I think they'd find some homes just on the seat of the pants vibe. I think they'd be pretty well received.
Can we get some T-shirts made up with Mal's seat of the pants?
The pants vibe. We were also calling it the Equinox vibe, which was I think it was was it the lane warning that gave you the seat of the pants vibe in the Equinox?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Something's going wrong.
Our new range of merch will have Mal's seat of the pants vibe. Then we can finish this one off with Seat and Cupra. Now, one we haven't seen for the best part of 25 years. There was a little blip on the radar that said Seat some time ago. It disappeared not long afterwards. And there are some really terrific kind of models. It's the Spanish-built arm of Volkswagen Group. They've got the Arona, which is a Kamiq-style vehicle, Karoq-like Atika, the Golf-based Leon, Kodiaq-esque Tarraco. Most are highly regarded abroad, Byron says, including in New Zealand. So it's kind of Volkswagen Group's sort of maybe Alfa Romeo. Let's give our cars a little bit of sporting flair and something different. And the Seat's dedicated performance brand, Cupra, which we are going to see here sometime in Australia. We've been given the heads up, and we'll get the details soon. But they are going to receive the Formenta VZ, which is an Atika-based 2.5 litre, 287 kilowatt turbo 5-cylinder all-wheel drive SUV, $7,000 unit limited edition. So that's all happening, and we're seeing none of it. What about an extra brand under the VW group, Mal? Seat.
I've long thought, where's Seat? Given Seat is to Spain what Skoda is to the Czech Republic.
Sure.
And both are to Volkswagen and, the models they relate to. I don't know if that made any sense, but can
you start again, Matt? Oh, no, okay, I did understand.
Make sense,
yeah, it did.
If Skoda makes sense in Australia, why doesn't Seat make sense in Australia?
Sure.
But, there's only room for so many brands, but, Australia agree with that.
Meshing all the different cogs in the Volkswagen Group machine, making sure that they all work and there's no clashes, across Seat, Skoda, Volkswagen, Audi. On it goes as you walk your way up from premium to sports to whatever it might be. It's an absolute headache, I'm sure.
Yeah, but now that they've taken the Cupra nameplate, which used to be applied to performance versions of Seat, it's now a sub-brand like Lexus is to Toyota, but a performance sub-brand. That makes sense. They can position it differently to a regular Seat lineup and sort of out of step with a Skoda lineup. So bring it on. And Australia loves performance variants. Don't we? And we love top of line versions. And we buy more RS versions of Octavias, etc. than by volume than anywhere else.
Yes. So the Cupra thing may well fly. So we'll see how that goes in Australia.
But as for New Zealand, good. I think it's another test market thing.
Right. Okay.
But does New Zealand get Skoda?
Great question. Our Kiwi listeners and viewers, I know we have several, can let us know what the score is and how they feel about all of these cars in their home market.
That might be the difference.
That might be. All right. Well, that was a good wrap-up of that and good coverage of Byron's story. Thank you, guys. And we are now going to move on to our own garage and the vehicles that we have been driving on Australian soil. And Mal, can I start with you, please? It's a vehicle that you've covered before, but you're bookending it now. Bring us up to date, please.
Yeah, so I mentioned probably several podcasts ago that I had undertaken a Hyundai Palisade long-term test, and now I've had it for 6 months and 10,000 kilometres. It's gone back. Here's my findings. So as the 8-seat version of Palisade, spoilers. Oh, it's all the spoilers. Okay. But you know.
Yeah, Mel spoiled the car.
Anyway, 8-seat version, top of the range with the diesel. Therefore, with metallic paint, it's just under $76,000 list price.
Yep.
Up there. However, it comes with every feature you could ask for. It's not as big as you might think. It's only 20 centimetres longer than a Santa Fe, but gives you the third seatbelt across the third row of seats, which could make all the difference if your kids love bringing their friends along. Now, we put our 3 child seats across the second row, which is no worries. And it also meant that we got very little use out of the third row, but it gave us a gigantic boot, which who doesn't love a gigantic boot?
Yep.
We managed to carry all sorts
of people with big feet.
That's right.
Yeah.
Particularly, yeah. We managed to carry all sorts of things like a clothes dryer, single seat sofa, a toilet. But the main thing it meant was that we'd take the kids' bikes on family trips, but Dad could bring his bike too within the car without having to fit it on a bike rack or on the roof.
Your dad?
No, this dad.
Oh, okay, fine. I thought you had him in there as well.
Almost. Almost. Right. Anyway, now, lovely, comfortable car with really good ergonomics as per current Hyundai tradition. I'm not in love with having the emergency brake, the park brake on the other side of the steering wheel to the selector. So, you start the car, you grab drive, you release, and then you've got to release the handbrake with your right hand. It's kind of two hands doing things that aren't on the steering wheel. But it's a little thing. It's very comfortable around town. Gets a bit floaty at highway speeds, particularly when you've got a full load on board. Once again, the Palisade didn't get the Australian suspension tuning that most Hyundais have had of late. And even though it arrived at the same time as the updated Santa Fe, the Palisade has the old iron block diesel and torque converter automatic, as opposed to the alloy block and dual clutch auto. But I challenge anybody to notice that from behind the wheel.
All right.
The fuel consumption I got over 6 months was 8.9 litres per 100 kilometres, averaged overall fills, which is some way off the 7.3 claim. But it's only less than a half litre more than what I experienced with the Santa Fe.
It's pretty good. I was going to say that's not too bad.
Yeah, it's a big car, but it's not that big a car, I suppose.
And what percentage of the time do you reckon you had multiple, passengers on board? Was it
95% of
the time? Okay,
yeah. It was all genuine family use. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic.
Anyway, you can read all about it on the CarsGuide site.
Yes.
Plus, and my video will be up soon. In the meantime, we've got lots of other Palisade things, including our big 8-seat comparison that Richard and Nadal did a while ago, where we put up against the Carnival and the Mercedes Valente.
So we did. Very good.
Yeah, all right. I watched that. That was good.
Yes.
I thought so too.
You sound surprised, Crafty.
No, not at all. No.
Now, we'll move to your good self now, Marcus. And you've been playing the macho card fairly heavily with this vehicle. Please fill us in.
I had the new generation Ram 1500, the DT series. I had the top spec, the limited. So there's essentially 2 specs, the Laramie and the limited. But you can option your way up with Ram boxes and that sort of thing. Ram boxes are, it's fancily called the cargo management system, but what it amounts to is 2 sort of really clever storage spaces along each rear, over the top of each rear wheel arch. So that's all hollowed out and insulated and whatever. One's
basically built-in eskies.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
giant built-in eskies.
Yeah. They've got drain plugs, and one has a power socket. But anyway, that's all beside the point. The tub is unreal and really impressed me during the time. Just the versatility of it. There's also a cargo separation barrier that's removable, sort of fore and aft in the tub. It's got a tub liner, nice sturdy tub liner, fixed tie-down points, 4 of those, 4 tie-down cleats, they call them. I just call them tie-down points, but in rails that are installed just under the soft tonneau cover. That's a tri-fold, so you fold it once, fold it twice, fold it back.
Is that those rails? Is that a bit like the ones in the Navara?
They are, yeah. They're like the utility track system, but it is unreal. That's
great.
That's the longest amount of time I've spent in one. I've been in the Eco Diesel. We've done tow tests with Rams in the past. I didn't do any hardcore off-roading. This time was more on-road, and just to get a feel for the thing. We will, rest assured, readers and viewers, that we will, and also we'll tow with this. This was
soft core is more your go anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, to the cafe and back for my frappuccino.
That's right.
That's right. A little puppy chino for my 3 dogs. It is the 5.7 litre V8, so petrol, but I guess kind of a selling point for people who might be a little bit green inclined. It does have a mild hybrid system. It's got a battery in there, but that's really
fancy alternator.
Yeah, pretty much. It's not a big deal in this thing. And if it's a 5.7 litre Hemi V8, so that's sort of
Crafty. What fuel number did you get?
It was actually pretty good. Geez, you've got me there, officer. Hold on.
Because I think it's also got cylinder deactivation and all the rest.
It does. And it ticks along nicely. I don't have an exact figure, Mel, but I'd be expecting. Okay. We did have a bit of gear in it at times, and not fully loaded. We had 4 people, 2 adults, 2 children, no dogs. But we did have a bit of gear in the stuff, and it's probably, 10 and a half, 11. It really ticks along the highway nicely. We did do some big Ks on the highway, so it's allowed to deactivate those cylinders and just sort of rumble along.
Pretty amazing, given a car of its scale.
Exactly.
Burning petrol.
And that's another thing. That's the longest amount of time I've spent in something that I perceived as sort of unnecessarily big. But you get used to that swiftly. I mean, the first drive, even. I say we didn't do any four-wheel driving, but we did go down some gravel tracks and stuff that was treed in a little bit, and you'd probably be a little bit conscious of that in it, but it handled it well. Steers really nicely, rides really nicely. Massive amount of space inside, as you'd imagine, because it is a big truck.
This new generation's been a long time coming too. And I remember Chesto drove it in America in the 11.5-hour before
he was on one of the last flights to come in from the States to Australia pre-COVID.
And he raved about it. It just seemed, I mean, it's sort of, a decade or so between generations, so you'd expect the new one to be better, but it seems like it's particularly good for a Stellantis product.
Yeah, it is. It's
good interior.
Absolutely. All very premium, as you'd expect. The one I was in is the limited with the Ram boxes that tickles 140 grand.
Wow,
fellas. Yeah. So, a fair bit of coin for JC. That's lunch money. That's, for the rest of us,
2 wild tracks.
Exactly. Yeah.
2 wild tracks.
So a lot of dosh, but obviously a proven towing platform, and you see a lot of those and F trucks around or whatever towing horse trailers and that sort of stuff. So. And just really nice to spend time in and to do a lot of Ks in and sort of varied terrain, varied weather. Very nice.
Very good. Very good. All right. Thank you, Crafty. I can finish off with it's another Hyundai. We're still in the Hyundai fold here, but it's a Santa Fe active diesel, 2.2 turbo diesel, in fact, 4-cylinder, 140
new alloy block.
148 kilowatts, 440 Newton meters coming from the new alloy block. And those Newton meters.
That's a new alloy block.
New alloy block kicks off from 1750 RPM. That
and the dual clutch transmission. Already getting to that.
Is that alloy as well, Mel?
Probably to a large degree.
8-speed dual clutch, all-wheel drive, $51,800 before you put it on the road. And had the opportunity to drive it from Sydney down to Canberra, which is about a 3-hour odd drive, mostly freeway. And it was impressive in terms of the way it rides, really nice and quiet. I think it looks pretty sharp. That's always a subjective thing, but I quite like the look of it. This is the second from entry grade model, the Actives, and it was very nicely finished. And you had these alloy effect, trim elements around the cabin. It felt a nice place to sit in. 7 seats, leather appointed interior. You had an 8-inch media screen. The upper models have a slightly bigger media screen, but this one was fine. And the connection for things like CarPlay and whatever was super simple and very reliable. Lots of standard features and safety tech, although the drawback I think that we've called out before is that, this one now gets AEB with junction assist, which is great, but there's no effective third row coverage for the curtain airbags for that back row, which is a bit of an Achilles heel, I've got to say. But in terms of Palisade does, right? Mel?
Oh yeah.
Hello, Mel. Yes. So
yes.
So for that journey, and we had 3 people in the vehicle and some gear in the back and whatever. It was really nice thing to drive down the freeway. I would have thought you could do a lot worse. So there you go.
Nice.
And now it is time to move on to the feedback from last time around. And we were talking about the models Ford Australia needs with a particular focus on the Maverick, the new pickup that's caused a lot of buzz in America. And our first commenter was a guy called Andrew Chesterton who said, just the right amount of Chesto this time. And feedback is back, all capital letters. And we had everyone from Hammer, Lofty, TGV, the Very Fast Train, to Cook, Jim Danek, who wants an intro tune for the feedback section.
Oh, nice.
And we'll have a think about that. Peter Panousis, Grudlin, everyone was very happy that we have this feedback section back. But we also had a lot of want for the Maverick and others calling out Bronco, F-150, Explorer, even the Figo, which is a little Indian-built hatch thing. The ADRs may be a bit of a challenge there, but lots of people saying Ford, grow up here and bring them all in. And the Very Fast Train, in fact, said, I'll go one further. Australia needs the Bronco Sport. He owns a ZG Escape ST line. He'd be on the waiting list for a Bronco Sport Badlands. And he's hoping that maybe Ford Australia, if they're successful to get the Bronco Sport, it might be the Stress Lecky or the Simpson rather than those more American terms, with an FX4 package. 2-litre turbo petrol, inline 4, 8-speed torque converter auto, all-wheel drive, Twinster locking double clutch pack differential, GOAT modes, ATR tyres, uprated suspension. Yes, please make it happen, Ford Australia. What do you make of that, Crafty?
There you go. Well, geez, I'd give it a drive. People have been screaming out for those since there were concepts bandied about ages ago. I'd like to think that there's a place for them here, but again, other people may disagree.
What product planners?
Bean counters.
People who actually have a say. Look, it's never say never, but yeah, who knows, Jason?
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
What we got to during last week's discussion was there was the potential for Ford to reimagine itself as an adventure brand. That you'd have Bronco, you'd have Bronco Sport, maybe the Maverick as a lifestyle vehicle, and it's all about that kind of view of the product line.
Yeah, with that part of the realm going so well for them, I mean, why wouldn't you?
And to diversify their portfolio away from Ranger being such a dominant player for them, that if something happens there, they're exposed.
Ranger would be a key part of its adventure.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, totally. So Grudlin 74 says, bring it on, but they need to move fast. Look how far GWM's come in utes. It wouldn't take much for the brand to shift into high gear in the Aussie market. It can be done. And you have to find yourself a personality, a niche in the market that is the go-to. And we were theorising that might be a good one for Ford.
It makes so much sense to me, but the problem is Subaru did it decades ago.
Yeah.
Jeep has tried to do it in Australia with, Trailhawk versions of everything.
Yeah.
And the Trailhawk versions are very expensive. And,
yes,
the Bronco Sport with diffs would no doubt also be an expensive proposition.
Yeah. Well, if your diff's making that noise, it's in bad shape. That's right. But then, look, Brian heard brought us all crashing back down to earth when he said it's all very well crapping on about what they should sell here, but there are two reasons why they don't. Always has been two reasons why they don't. Australia is a piffling market, and why bother? It's right-hand drive here. So there you go. Pretty telling. I did put the case for just starting a trend and moving to the other side of the road to try and get us, moving towards driving on the right-hand side. I did give that a go at a few points during the week, and I couldn't get many people with me.
Right.
I'd call it a flat-out fail, really. But yeah.
It's good to see you here to tell the tale.
I won't stop trying every now and then.
Just let me know if you're going across the Harbour Bridge with that experiment.
That may not be the best place.
Just give me the heads up and I'll work from home, I think.
Now, Hammer chimed in again. And Crafty, I got those pictures of you and Hammer on that camping trip that you took, and people on YouTube will be able to see those. They're up on the screen. Looked like you had a great time.
Yeah.
Am
I clothed in those shots?
You are fully clothed, amazingly.
Excellent.
Yeah, at least pants.
Yeah.
Yep. He says, on your topic of SUV versus wagon, because we were talking about the benefits of a wagon relative to an SUV and vice versa. Yeah. He previously owned a 1999 Volvo V70 wagon, and he said it had heaps more cargo room with the second row seats up or down than his current daily driver, which is an X5, a 2016 X5. Yeah. And his current overlanding project, which is an LC80. Even though the X5 and Land Cruiser look so much larger on the outside, and he says, borrowing from the Volvo ad from the movie Crazy People, buy Volvos. They're boxy, but they're good. So he had a lot to say for wagons. I think in many ways he's right, and you get that benefit of more car-like dynamics rather than the high-riding thing on the road.
Well, and we've touched on this in the past. Well, more than touched on it, we've discussed it quite heavily on this podcast and in the office, as it were. But I think a lot of people buy SUVs or four-wheel drives or all-wheel drive, and they really need a wagon.
Yeah,
like a very learned bloke once said to me, Alan Whiting, who's one of Australia's top four-wheel drive or automotive trucking journalists.
Very nice, eating fish as well, of course.
Yeah. But he's a top bloke. He said, buy what you need, not what you want. And I think a lot of times people, we end up buying what we want, but not actually what we need day to day. And
yeah, that's a great life lesson.
Yeah, I just thought I'd impart that. You can tell I'm getting really old because I dredge up stuff like that. and also another great four-wheel drive automotive journalist, Ron Moon, once said to me, drive it like you stole it. So
that's equally valid advice.
It's just,
So there's a spectrum of advice.
That's right, yeah,
right. Crafty words to live by.
Blokes. Yeah, two top blokes.
I think that could be a new segment, crafty words to live by.
Yeah. Very boring. But
all right,
so
now we also...
Can we edit that bit out?
No, it's staying in. Okay. Now, the other thing was DeCook, our old mate DeCook, he made an interesting point because Tom White last week was talking about Golf 8 and theorising that it was probably the last Golf we'll see, that there may be some facelifts or whatever, but last generation Golf, because the whole ID and electrification thing for Volkswagen will probably put it out to pasture. I did make the point that when the Golf arrived, the Beetle continued to be produced for some time afterwards, so it's not necessarily a black and white situation. And DeCook backed that up by saying that, the VW Group has been known for tailoring their offering to different markets. That, in fact, the last new original Beetle was built in Mexico in 2003. Skoda's been offering classic, in inverted commas, reduced Octavia lineup on some Central European markets after the second gen was introduced. Golf wagons up to Mark IV were based on previous gen platforms. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the Golf 4 Cabrio was actually a Golf 3, but with the Golf 4 face on it, things like that. Yep. So it could be that you just kind of cut and paste according to what specific markets need. Europe gets things like ID3. We get a Mark 8 Golf that's refreshed, but still has old motors and whatever. South America, China, Australia, we kind of go in that group. What do you think of that, Mel?
I think that's been one of Volkswagen's greatest strengths. to date, and in doing that, they're able to amortize engineering investment. Like they might not make their money back on developing a Mark V Golf in Germany, but as it sort of travels through the world, appearing as, cheaper and older versions to suit different market requirements, it pays for itself. And
yes,
Anyway,
we also,
I think we'll be seeing the Golf for a while yet.
Yeah, good point. I agree. The other thing is Tim Collier came in and said we were talking about SUVs having a particular advantage because, frankly, they're easier to get in and out of. And he said he just made the switch from a Kia Sorento to an M140i BMW. And he said the getting in and out issue is it's harder. My parents use a mid-size SUV just because you can swing your legs down and stand up without climbing out of it. They're always sedan or wagon buyers until then. Came from a Liberty wagon, but it was too low. And he also says, the M140i is a secret gem of a car. And I couldn't agree more on that. What a cracking car. So half your luck, Tim Collier. But it's just one of those practicality elements where once people get used to the easy in and out of an SUV, it's hard to go back, I suppose.
Yeah, and I mean the lion's share of them are so close in terms of being a little bit car-like, in all manner of the term, ride and handling and that sort of thing. Yeah. And they are convenient and for load-in height and all that sort of thing, and climbing in and out.
Yeah. Although you struggle to empathise with that, Crafty, given your affection for yoga.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, it's the Bikram one where you're semi-clad, isn't it? And it's like a sauna.
That's
Crafty,
right.
typically.
Yeah, it's always like a sauna in my trousers.
That's right.
It's like a greenhouse.
Moisture on the windows, and it's dripping off the ceiling sometimes.
I think you wear it's activewear, isn't it, Crafty?
That's it. Yeah, always. Yeah.
Look, under a more general heading, John Beart, who'd been very strident in his thoughts on the podcast, thinking that we just nod and smile and agree with one another and all of that and have a laugh. But he said, look, it was the best show in 1 week and 6 days. So I think he liked the one a fortnight ago. He says, good job, everyone, and thank you for the show. So thank you, John.
Oh, wow.
That's terrific. Yeah, and Greg Burville said, is it just me or are Stephen Otley and Mike Brewer of Wheeler Dealers doppelgangers? Wow. And we'll have there's an image on the screen for people on YouTube, and you draw your own conclusions. I hadn't thought of that until Greg planted the seed. So there you go. And he also says, when are you tools going to broadcast from the same shed again? And look, it's something, Greg, that we've been grappling with because we are in Sydney and we're in and out of lockdowns and restrictions and whatever. The upside of doing this podcast remotely is that people can join from anywhere, wherever they are at any given point in time. There's a lot to be said for the dynamic of people in the same room. So it may be that we ultimately go with some kind of hybrid of the two, but rest assured we're thinking about it and working on it. So there you go.
Yeah, and it'd be a shame to exclude the likes of Tung, Justin and Byron who are in Melbourne.
Exactly.
From being
and look,
podcast.
At the moment I'm sitting in the long grass in the South Island of New Zealand. So
you are. Yeah, you are.
So that's the magic of technology.
About to be clobbered by a compact four-wheel drive. But
Kiwi Gagamobile.
With that, we have reached the finish line. I want to say thank you, Mal.
Thank you, James.
And thank you, Crafty.
Oh, no, thank you. And thank you, Mal.
Thank you, Crafty. Yeah. You're welcome, everybody.
And thanks to our pancake prodigy, apprentice piano tuner and aspiring rock god, Mr. Pritchard, for the breadth of skills and depth of commitment he brings to the show. Today, he's wearing a T-shirt saying, I wonder if beer thinks about me too. Picnic pants and computer boots. People on YouTube will be able to see those. It's quite a look. Let us know your thoughts. You can find Cars Guide on Facebook and Instagram or email us at comments@carsguide.com.au. If you're an Apple podcast listener, please rate and review us and make sure to subscribe to the Cars Guide YouTube channel so you can stay on top of all our latest content. But before we go, I've been thinking about writing a memoir from the point of view of all the cars I've owned. It'll be an autobiography.
Oh, JC.